We are bringing you developing news and the stories behind headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Ed Lingao, and some stories are watching this Wednesday, the midweek, August 21. The Department of Foreign Affairs has notified Interpol about the case of dismissed Bamban-Tarlac Mayor Alice Go. That's according to Senator Risa Ontiveros. For his part, President Bongbong Marcos assures the public that those behind Go's departure will be held accountable, saying, and quote, heads will roll. Aalisin ang ulo. Partido Federal ng Pilipinas National President Governor Reynaldo Tamayo clarifies that the administration's 2025 Senate slate has not yet been finalized. This is after Senator Amy Marcos released their supposed lineup. The list includes, or Amy's list includes, representatives from the Partido Federal, Lakas CMD, the Nationalist People's Coalition, and the Nationalista Party. And 7 residents of Quezon City are now on quarantine for MPOX. Mayor Joy Belmonte says they conducted contact tracing after the country's newest case visited a dermatology clinic and a massage spa in E. Rodriguez. Sorry. So, meanwhile, Health Secretary Ted Torbosa assures the public that they are prepared to manage and treat MPOX cases. He also notes that the virus is unlike COVID-19 and is much less contagious. And joining us today, Ami Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star, and of course, Storycon's resident political pundit, Tito Ronald Llamas. Ba't natawa ka dun sa, sa spa?
Natawa lang ako. Parang marami na hawaan.
Buti na lang. Buti na lang, wala tayong hilig sa ganun. Si Ami natatawa.
Ako, nagpapamassage ako noon, pero since the pandemic, hindi na ako home massage lang naman.
Ito bang gantong mga spa, mas madali o mas mahirap ang contact tracing?
Yan na nga eh. Kaya nga.
Actually, mas madali ang
anyway,
contact.
may order siya, President Marcos, na close monitoring daw. Yung mga areas na meron na mga MPOX and mga vulnerable communities.
Pero I think theoretically, mas madali ang contact tracing dyan sa mga spa dahil lahat yan presumably close contact eh.
Dahil may
Pero,
contact.
May record.
Kasi talagang contact. Pero practically, mahirap yun kasi walang umaamin.
Hindi, pero ito nahuli. Baka nagalit yung misis.
Hindi naman ganyan ang mga spa ngayon. Mga spa ngayon, mga regular na spa na may regular
Ibang
massage.
generasyon to eh.
Saka ang problema dyan, di ba sabi ng mga health experts, it can take several weeks bago mag-manifest yung symptoms. So kahit yung masahista, baka hindi alam na meron na siya.
Yeah, an incubation
At kahit
period.
yung hinawahan. And you can get the infection from sheets.
From the
Bed
linen.
sheets, linens na merong yung fluids, yung pawis or whatever na nadikit dun sa infected person without knowing kasi hindi mo naman agad-agad makikita yung mga rashes, yung mga pangit na butlig-butlig, hindi mo makikita.
Magsisapig na tayo, regalo nung kasama ko. Baka
Hindi naman sa akin ang galing yung original news na pinanggalingan eh. Medyo mas kompleto yung balita eh. Noong una ko narinig eh.
Ito binawasan na para hindi tayo matrobol.
Oo nga.
Itawa ka ng tao eh. Sige.
Hanggang tawa na lang ako eh.
Nung panahon ni Ronald, massage parlor pa tawag noon eh. Ngayon, spa na spa. Pati mga babae, pati mga old women, nagpapaano dyan.
Tama.
Talagang tunay na massage siya. Tunay na
Parang
body massage yan. Natatanda ko yan noong unang panahon. Body massage daw.
pero Ami, parang itong nangyaring ito, parang hindi yung tunay na massage.
Mukhang yung
do not use the
infection.
word.
Hindi yan
Do not use the
daw.
word.
Yung first case daw natin, mukhang hindi nga yung tunay na massage.
Do not use the word.
Ano ang problema? Although, hindi natin alam kung sa spa nakuha.
Oo nga naman.
Mukhang hindi eh.
Oo nga. There's always a presumption of innocence
He went there.
and regularity.
But he went there.
Yan. Hindi naman sina-shutdown kapareho sa COVID, di ba? Pinag-iingat lang lahat ng tao.
Kailangan, mahalaga yan,
Yeah.
yung presumption of regularity.
Yeah.
Lalo na kung gagawa ka ng libro.
Oh.
Presumption.
Okay. Teka, balikan natin. Sige, balikan natin. Doon tayo sa headlines ni Ami. Anong headlines niyo bukas?
Dadagdagan ko lang yung mga nireport nyo. Sabi ng DBM, di ba may mukhang umuugong na naman na gustong ipa-revive yung isabong. Sabi ng DBM, pareho lang yan nung Pogo na yung mga kikitain natin dyan, it's not worth the trouble. Ganon din parang sa Pogo rin daw yan. Kaya ayaw din ng DBM.
Maraming bitbit na problema.
Yung isabong.
Ang kaibahan lang sa isabong ay yung audience, yung kliyente ay mga Pilipino. So yung
Mga ordinaryong tao.
Oo. Yung
Isabong.
parang weteng. Yung dapat ginagamit nila
Yes.
sa 21 peso na meal, no, diyan mapupunta. So yung 21 peso
Isabong.
baka maging 11 pesos na lang dahil maraming Pilipino sa bungero di ba?
Saka madaling tumaya sa online Although hindi magandang panuorin, di ba? Screen lang yan
Oo.
For all you know, AI na lang yan
Ano na nga pala nangyari doon sa more than 30 sa bungero na nawala? Hindi ko na alam
Wala
kung
na.
anong latest doon.
Ang sabi, earlier this year, sabi ni Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla, they are presumed to be victims of mass murder.
Yeah, pero sinong
So,
naparusahan?
presumed dead na.
Sino nakasuhan?
Merong mga 6 na gwardya dun sa Manila Arena cockpit na inaresto. But later, I think they were granted bail. So yun lang, saka may 3 yatang pulis na inaresto on a separate case dahil nakunan yata sa video. Pero yung iba, hanggang ngayon, di natin alam kung ano nangyari dun sa 34 sa Bungero.
So parang Pogo rin, may
Hindi
element
na nakita.
may element din ng
Ganyan.
may element din ng mga homicide at saka posibleng torture. No, may ganung element din yan.
Meron, no? Baka alam mo naman, baka nakakapanood ng mga Netflix yan kung ano ginagawa sa mga katawan para hindi na makita kahit kailan
Talaga Netflix ang
Kaya
peg ni
hindi
Ami.
na natin makita.
Anong pelikula ba?
Tinutunaw sa asido, yun, sabihin na natin.
Oh, yan.
Okay, ano pa yung
Yan,
headline nyo? May follow-up kayo ng yung mahiwagang libro?
Wala pa nga, iniintay ko nga kung dapat hindi ba i-pursue yun?
May kopya na. Nagkaalat na yung
Yun
kopya. Pakita ko sa mga yung kopya dito. Meron tayong digital copy dito. Courtesy of
Yun na nga yun na nga
I-edit mo na lang.
Especially for children, I think it has to go through a board. It has to be vetted by a board before you can distribute to public schools in particular.
Well,
Baka kasi naughty yung owl Kaya
Hindi talaga. Hindi mo alam kung ano content niyan
Yeah. Although I don't know if it's really meant for public schools. Although it is using public funds. So may ganun. Sabagay, pero school bags ang paglalagyan.
Hindi distribute daw sa schools.
School bags Oo.
Na-order yata yan when she was still the education secretary.
Actually, we did the cursory book. We did a cursory read of the contents. Medyo hindi siya, well, of course we're not experts here, so it's nice
Hindi
to
siya
get an
ganun
expert.
ka-original.
It's not that, it's more of style-wise, hindi siya pambata medyo complex yung sentences. May mga several clauses in one sentence.
Ang napansin ko yung mga ungrammatical na mga...
There's also that problem.
Yan pa, Kaya nga kailangan siyang i-vet ng board for content and yun na nga, yung grammar. Di ba?
Anyway, in a bit, Bok, we will have a guest later who can talk to us about yung proseso ng paggawa ng mga libro from the Book Development Board. Although I think she'd rather not talk about public funding for books. Pero we can talk naman about how books are produced and what we have to watch out for and yung mga the values as well as the elements that have to be involved in book publishing if you want if you want to be responsible about it paano dapat yan, anong klase mga author ang hinanap natin at anong klase mga value at tinutulak sa mga children's books. I think we have her on the line already. Ipasok natin?
Yep.
Let's go with it
sige.
na. Okay. Well, I think we have on the line Miss Andrea Pasion Flores, the former the publisher of Mil Flores Publishing, an independent book publisher. I understand she's also the former director or executive director of the National Book Development Board. Ms. Flores, magandang hapon and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Hi.
Good afternoon po.
Everybody.
Hi.
Magandang hapon po.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Ma'am, I'm not sure if you've already seen the book, whether hard copy or soft copy. Pero I suppose we can start off with something very, let's set the baseline muna. When you publish a book, especially a children's book, what are you looking for? And what are you looking out for?
Ano yung,
So
ano
it
yung, ano
depends,
yung
no?
processes na ginagawa?
Okay. So, for a children's book, it depends on whether what is the purpose of for me, the publisher, no? Do I want to make it a learning book, let's say a book about reading, or perhaps in this case, you want to reassure the child because for many of the things that are happening in this world, no, there's war, there's a pandemic, there's lots of natural tragedies. So those are maybe a few of the things that go through the mind of a publisher when looking for a children's book, no. So this
Okay.
this
Purpose is one.
in particular seems to be of the second, no, na there's you want to reassure the child, no, that everything is okay kasi may parang delubyo yata na nangyari sa storya.
I think it was a case of an owl that lost its home sa isang bagyo.
Yes. Yeah, so that's very common in our country. I have seen a few titles, no, not just in the Philippines, tackling this very disturbing phenomenon, no, either flood that makes people lose their homes, no, and it's very common in children's books that the characters are made to be animals and not people, no, because it's less threatening while getting the story across. So you mentioned that the book is wordy, no? It doesn't seem to be for a young child, although because it's a short book, no, it's 16 pages with colorful illustrations. It looks like that the consumer vis-a-vis the customer, no, the consumer seems to be a child. Perhaps the customer is the parent, no? So kasi the child will not be able to read these very wordy sentences, no? So perhaps the intent was to have the child on the lap of a parent, right, or a guardian, a grown-up, an ate or kuya, and to read the story to the child. So that's how I'm looking at the intent. No, it's a read along, and it's short enough, and there's the reassurance at the end that hopefully everything will be okay despite the distress in the story. So that's the as to that particular book, no. Those are the elements for that kind of book that I would look for a young child.
Pero
Attorney,
paano?
can you tell us what the vetting process is for books that are for distribution to students in public schools? Lalo na yung ganyang kabata na yung target ng book na yan. Ano po yung proseso nun? What are the steps?
Okay, for the public schools, no, I was in government a long time ago, so I may not be as versed in the process now. No, these things change. But I guess the DepEd has guidelines, no, for the procurement of titles. In the private sector, what we do is if we intend to pick up a book like this, for example, I want to get a series of books. So kasi for me, this kind of book is not a standalone. For me, gagawin ko tong series. So I would look for stories or someone who's making it already, or maybe find an author or author illustrator who I feel might be perfect for such kind of stories, no. So That's one, no? I've identified my goal. I will find an author or author illustrator. So sa children's books, marami po tayong illustrators na author din. So I will look for that and get a procure the IP, the intellectual property by
Yes.
getting a contract, sending the contract to the author, and discuss the parameters here. And then, medyo matagal yung process namin, no? Siguro 1 year, 1.5 years, kasi I want to give the illustrators time to draw. You want to make sure that the words are age appropriate and the pictures are age appropriate. If there's time because the goal is always to try and get it into let's say institutions like teachers to read the stories to children, to get them interested, especially ito parang distressful yung story, so I'm thinking baka at times of distress this book might be something reassuring. So those are the factors that I would look for, no? And then print and then distribute. So, yung sa distribution, there are many aspects, no? Kasi me private, so I go to booksellers, no? So booksellers look at the quality of the paper, the appropriateness also. So the vetting is long and many in the private sector, no? And then if you go to schools, it goes through the committees that procure, no, for those particular schools. For the public school, I'm not sure. So I'm not quite the expert in the procurement of this particular book. Now, I do know that they do have a bureau that looks at trade books. When I say trade books, those are books that are not textbooks. And to see if they purchase it off the shelves, no, of if it is appropriate for the school system. So,
nabanggit nyo nga, attorney, na hindi kayo expert dun sa process sa gobyerno. Halimbawa, in relation sa ganyang mga books. Pero kahit indicative man lang, dahil nabanggit nyo more comprehensively yung process sa private sector. Siguro hindi naman ganun kalayo yung halimbawa, oversight, due diligence na ginagawa sa gobyerno. Halimbawa, nabanggit nyo yung
public funds.
lalo na nabanggit nyo yung intellectual property. Halos sigurado naman siguro may magche-check niyan dapat na ito ay hindi plagiarize o ito hindi kinopya lamang sa ibang mga libro or tama man lang yung mga content, halimbawa grammar, no, baka yung mga ganun bang bagay, perhaps you can share your kahit papaano indicative knowledge on how this might be decided on itong ganitong klaseng process. Sabi nyo nga baka may bureau.
Okay. Kasi in relation to the private sector, our contracts when we procure the IP would have provisions wherein it is stated that the author assures the publisher that the work is original. No? So there's a warranty by the author na hindi siya pinagkopyahan kung saan. No, and yung pagkokopya, no, is a very very technical term, no, and you have it's not just word for word, no, it's the story idea perhaps, or the similarities in illustration, similarities in sequencing of the events in the story. So it's not just about word for word copying and then claiming it's yours, no. It's all these other things that go into the name of your program is Story Conference. No? So we have that regularly with our authors. No? When I say authors, also illustrators. No? And sometimes the the work is really very tedious. Pag binigay sa amin ng author, we don't accept it right away, no? It goes through language experts. Kasi, for example, we need a Filipino expert for something like that. We would ask a teacher, for example, for appropriateness of language. We would vet the illustration na is it appropriate? Halimbawa, if is there like politically incorrect words like are we calling a character, let's say, fat or silly or whatever, no? So those things, no, we for children's books, it's very important to vet. And I'm talking as a traditional publisher, let's say vis-a-vis an author who's self-publishing, who might not have those tools behind the traditional publisher behind her work, no? And yun yung difference kasi ng isang traditional publisher vis-a-vis, let's say, a self-publisher. And parang scaling it down, no? Not looking at this as a big government contract. It just seems like it feels like it's self-published, right? So it just that's probably what might be necessary if you are careful with what you're putting out. The tools within a traditional publisher or the care that a traditional publisher would give a particular work might not be. I'm not saying that for all, no, because you have a lot of wonderful self-published work out there. Might not just be within reach. But because it's the DepEd, it has a lot of mechanisms to check the work, and we just wish that the DepEd does that. Yun lang.
Attorney, ano yung role ng National Book Development Board in vetting children's books for schools?
So that's a misnomer in the fact that the NBDB, I think I can say even now, no, it's not like a vet, or it doesn't vet. It's not like a censor, no.
Yes.
It's not like that. So what it does, it helps the publishing industry. It does policy work and programs to help develop book publishing. So that's the role, no? And in some aspects, it has continued with that role, no? And there are provisions in the charter of the NBDB which has you see that enables collaboration in terms of mutual helping each other, no? And when helping each other, the DepEd and the NBDB vis-a-vis the private sector, no? To help in any way in terms of, let's say, anything they might want to know regarding books, no? And collaborations, let's say, in the textbook policy, or in how books, how to improve the way that the DepEd procures books, or how basically the private sector, and that engagement, I think, is still ongoing, no?
So, attorney, wala siyang regulatory or oversight functions?
There's no oversight function vis-a-vis when a book is published and a government agency perhaps says hindi yan pwede, no? I think as far as the industry is concerned, it's a free market, no? So in a lot of aspects, the buyer, no, is responsible for the content, no, that the person wants to purchase. But in terms of what's distributed in the DepEd, I think very much the DepEd being the buyer, is very much in control of what it procures.
Ma'am, I understand your point kanina well, you're no longer in government and it's been a long time since then and you may not be up to date. But can I ask you lang, at the very, very barest minimum, what should we be expecting as far as, for example, qualifications of the writer? Of a children's book. And number two, well, I'll reserve number two for later kasi matabunan eh. But at least yun muna.
Yeah, halimbawa, attorney, can anybody just write a book? No.
A children's book.
Okay, if you look at the intellectual property code, there is no qualification of what an author should be, right? If you have an original story, an author is more like a creator, so that an illustrator, if you look at the children's book especially, there's not just the text story, that's going on. There's the visual story also that's happening within a children's book. So for both the illustrator and the author, both have to be able to tell a story. So, and they can have, it's best, if they do have the background for it, but their publishers usually are able to assist, authors, because authors, there's a talent that goes on that you have. There's a minimum that you want, there's a story. And when you say story, there's elements of the story that you're looking for, right? Like character, plot, conflict, resolution, diba? So those are the things that if you ask me if it's a story, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes, ma'am.
And I ask you if it's not a story.
Yes, ma'am.
But this one, there's a story.
Yes, ma'am. But I don't understand. I understand that the private sector publication would be more liberal in the way it would look at the values or requirements, because in the end it's cargo ng publisher eh.
Free market na,
it's a free
sabi
market
ni attorney.
Whether it goes or not on sale, that's the publisher's problem. But if it's for example funded by taxpayers, then I suppose there's also a bare minimum as to what should be required of the writer.
Yes, a minimum term of reference, attorney. Meron bang ganon na TOR na pag binayolate mo ay hindi pwede? Halimbawa, nabanggit nyo, it cannot be politically incorrect. Diba?
Let's say dun sa text, hindi dapat siya kunyari naninira ng tao, hindi siya dapat
racist,
yun. So, of course, you want, I don't know what particular goals that particular project was trying to reach. So if in government if it can be justified that whatever they were doing was to there's an intervention that they wanted to do. So I don't know. But if you ask me, RA 8247 says that the DepEd should procure from the private sector, procure books from the private sector. So that has been the battle cry of the private sector. You want us to make good books. You don't want to be a target to say, let's say your books are erroneous or your books are this way. Then look at the private sector books, because these books have been vetted. These books are used in the private schools, and these books have the care that publishers put. So, in my opinion, the book should have been sana purchased from private sector. And that is in the law of RA 247.
Attorney, meron from your experience, may alam ba kayo ng mga violations in the past na nagkaroon ng kasuhan? Halimbawa, sa usapin ng intellectual property, sa usapin ng substance, meron bang ganyang mga previous precedents na nagkaroon ng legal problems?
Vis-a-vis, madami yan in terms of private, no? In the private sector, madami na nagkasuhan in terms of whatever, let's say plagiarism or infringement. Sa private sector, nangyari na siya, no? So, in the public sector, wala pa akong alam na, let's say,
Attorney, kung gustong mag-supply ng private publisher to the Department of Education, is there a bidding process? Do you have to go through bidding, competitive bidding?
I think that's the standard, no, in the Procurement Act, competitive bidding involved. But there's also I think there's an exception because of the copyright, no? If, for example,
Yes.
particular property that you want to purchase is owned, not the copyright is owned by only this particular entity, then you can have a negotiated bidding or negotiation as to the price vis-a-vis government procurement.
May cut-off amount ba for required bidding?
I'm not sure. I think it depends on the particular thing that they want to procure. But I can be wrong.
Ma'am, by...
So let's say, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Kunyari, they have a book, tapos ito yung kanilang
Yes.
budget. I know they announced that budget, that it's in PhilJets.
Yes.
So there is a process that the private sector goes through if they want to sell with the government. See yun.
Ma'am, by any chance, have you seen a soft copy of this book that's been controversial since yesterday? Whether in its entirety or
glance.
by pages lang? Have you, for example, seen a page or two?
Yes, I have.
Would it be okay with you if we ask you to share your opinions about the contents?
Well, it's a children's story for sure. It's short enough for a young child to understand. I feel it's not something that that's made for a child to read on his own or her own, but for an adult to read with the child. So it could be a read-along book where you have the child on the lap of the mom or the dad or a kuya or ate, and they go through the story together. And I feel that's important because of the topic of the book. The book has a tragedy, no? Very, very tragic yung nangyari yata dito sa Quago, no? Nasira yung bahay niya ng isang unos. So that has to be explained to a young child, no? Because it's very traumatic for someone to lose their homes, and that's probably a common experience among our countrymen, no? In times of crisis, we're always going through that, no? Na nawawalan sila ng bahay just recently, no? So that has to be factored into the book, no? Na may konting guidance. So it's something that should be read with a parent or an older sibling or an older guardian, no, to explain that, hey, it's a kind of story that should be reassuring, di ba? Now you want to reassure the child, and that's when you go to the international book fairs now, a lot of these kinds of books are coming out, and they're like a little bit more old-fashioned, no, in terms of parang there's a going back to home stories, no, for children now that I see abroad, because of the terrible things that are happening around the world, no? So parang these new stories coming out want to assure the child that everything will be okay and the home is a safe place. In this story, it's a little bit I want to be reassured, no, because the character loses his home. So there's that should be that's why I feel it's a read along. The child needs to be assured that everything will be okay despite the terrible things that are happening.
Attorney, nabanggit nyo kanina yung possible indications ng plagiarism. Halimbawa, maayos yung sinabi nyo na hindi lang siya word for word. No? Mahalaga rin yung storyline, mahalaga rin yung images, etc. So may isa kasing famous author, si Ninoch Carrasca, na naglabas ng post na parang may similarity itong ganitong libro sa iba pang mga istorya, no, na medyo nagfi-fit do sa sinabi nyo ng medyo, no, dun sa criteria o characteristics ng isang plagiarized book.
Okay. Hindi ko pa nabasa yung quote unquote original, no?
Yeah.
So I can't say
Ito yan.
if this is a plagiarism. So there's an allegation that it is, but I don't know for sure because I have not seen the original.
Yeah. At least ito yung post niya ni Ninochka. Not the book, no? Ito yung similarity.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
There's a similarity.
Yes, ito yung pinost ni Ninoch Carrasca na mukhang pinanggalingan or at least very similar doon sa libro na yan.
Specifically, ang sinasite ni Ninochka was the book Owly Just a Little Blue. It's a second book in the graphic novel Owly series by Andy Runton. Owly discovers a new bluebird and decides to build a home. Well, basically, ang nangyari sa storyng ito ng Owly ni Andy Runton, binagyo yung bahay ng kwago at nasira. At tinulungan siya ng isang ibon.
Isang ibon.
Pareho nga siya.
I'm not implying anything. I'm just reading
I am
Ninochka's
not sure. I can't say categorically that it's plagiarized. No, without the
Original.
you have to compare it. No, it's and in the end, copyright is a private right. No, so it's the person who was infringed who must
Complain.
the infringer. But of course, I hope it's not plagiarized. Because not just because she's the vice president. It's because she represents the country, and I really hope it's not plagiarized. So I would feel awful if it was. For a person who always goes to international fairs, it's hindi maganda. So sana hindi totoo.
Ma'am, pahabol na ng tanong, there were also some criticisms on the grammar used dun sa libro ni VP. For example, the word sina versus the word sila. Mali rin pagkakagamit ng ganun. So, that's going to your point earlier that these things should also be going to language experts before publication.
Yeah, so sana it was edited. Sana all these things went through it. Was it already distributed? Has it already been printed? Kasi kung hindi pa, baka there's still time. That's always my hope, no? Na sana maayos pa. Yung talagang ilalabas nila.
Well, they're asking for the money for next year's budget, di ba? So
Babayaran pa yan eh.
Baka may
10
limited,
million pa kailangan.
may limited printing dahil bibigyan lahat ng senador ng kopya.
Oo, ano.
So, ibig sabihin, baka may advanced copies.
Okay. Okay.
Maraming salamat.
Okay.
Meron pa, Pablo. Ma'am, maraming salamat. Attorney Andrea Pasion Flores, publisher at Mil Flores Publishing. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Maraming salamat,
Thank you
attorney.
very
Thank you,
much.
attorney.
Salamat po.
Okay, talaga. Okay. Bok, pakita lang namin sa iyo kasi yung
Sige.
yung
Nababasa ko yung ibang nababasa ko yung ibang pages.
talaga?
It's
Teka.
about friendship, ha?
Oo.
It's about friendship. Medyo niisip ko kung mag-get siya ng mga batang-batang estudyante. Ano kaya yung grade level na target niyan?
Eto, Bok, isang kaibigan. Kwento ni
It's
Inday
about
Sara.
friendship,
First pages
May introduction daw, sabi kilalanin si Vice President Sara Duterte, ha?
Last page yun, last page.
Anong...
Last page
Oo.
yun.
Hindi kasi siya politicize
Okay. Ito, isang kaibigan. Ay, umulit siya. Nag-iba lang yung background. Teka. Copyright page published by OVP. Para sa lahat ng batang Pilipino. That's page 4, I think, already. Of 16. Sa lilim ng lunti ang mga dahon ng banahaw, nakatago ang isang hiwaga. Si Quago ang marangyang ibon na may-ari ng isang pugad na nakapatong sa sanga ng puno ng mangga.
Nakalagay, Ed,
Meron
November
pa,
2023. Nakalagay. So,
Yeah.
ibig sabihin, printed to last year.
She launched it
Printed
last
na.
year.
Oo. So, ibig sabihin, printed na to.
I don't know how many copies. Pero she launched it last year sa Esteban Navarro
Printed
School.
na.
Oo.
So, the
So,
first...
para saan yung budget na 10 million?
Di ko alam. Di ko alam.
Kasi printed na eh. No, I think that's a valid question. Dapat,
Yeah.
siguro kung natuloy yung tanungan kahapon, kanino pupunta yung 10 million?
Actually,
Pupunta ba yan sa author?
Parang bahagi siya
Pupunta
ng...
ba yan sa office?
Parang bahagi siya ng
Di
isang
ba?
100 million fund
Yeah.
na mga
Na school bags.
kasama yung school bags. Tapos laman ng school bag, itong librong ito.
Actually, I think that should be clarified kasi ang hindi ko
Yes.
kahapon doon sa usapan, 10 million for the distribution of the book.
Kaya nga.
Yes.
I don't know if it's also for the publication.
Na-politicize kasi yung mga
Yes.
tanong.
So kung sakali,
Kaya nga sabi ko,
iba-ibang
it's a
budget
valid
yung
line of
publication.
questioning eh.
Kaya nga.
Kanino pupunta yun? Kasi author yun eh.
Eh,
She's an author, so meron niyang bayad, di ba?
Ito, Bok, that video you saw is the book launch in 2023, November, sa Esteban,
Yes.
Nevada, I think.
Printed na siya.
printed na siya.
So the budget for publication or publishing is separate and different pa siguro from the 10 million that you're
Well,
asking for.
hindi natin sigurado. Dahil nga hindi nagpatuloy yung line of questioning.
Hindi na tuloy eh.
Dahil
Dapat ituloy ng
there you go.
House.
binanatan na ito
Kasi
ay
kung
puli-
ganyan printed na yan, nabayaran na ba yung printing? Saka kailan binayad? 2023 budget ba yan or
Tama.
2024?
Oo.
But yung, I recall the conversation
Diba?
yesterday was about the distribution of the book. Yung 10 million.
Kasi
Anyway.
kung na-launch na siya last year, bayad na yan. Binayaran ba yung author? Binayaran ba yung office? And then, para saan yung 10 million next year?
Okay, so yung first page niya is one whole sentence. The next page, siya ay sagana sa pagkain at kaibigan at ang kanyang tahanan ay laging bukas para sa masasayang salo-salo. Kasama sila uwak. Ito yung pinupunto ng isang kaibigan, yung sila. Should be sina. Sila uwak, tikling, kalapati, loro at marami pang ibang ibon. That's also a 5-liner, one sentence. Ngunit dumating ang isang bagyong walang awa na sumira sa kanyang pugad at lahat ng mayroon si Quago. Walang natira kundi ang kalungkutan at kagutuman at tila ba ang mga kaibigang minsay kasama sa saya ay naglaho na parang bula.
Di ba significant yung ano yun, yung messaging doon?
Yeah.
Di ba politicized yung messaging doon?
I don't want to go there. I'm just saying that it's
Sinalang
it's
tayong
also,
bahay mo, inalayasan ka ng mga kaibigan mo at may natirang isa.
I'll just say that the sentence is several clauses.
Parang kilala ko yung isa na
Di ba
yun.
politicized yun?
Parang kilala ko yung isa na yun. Kilala mo ba yun? Ami?
Oo nga eh, oo nga.
Sa kanyang pag-iisa, nabagbag nakalagay, nabagbag.
Oo.
Baka
Pwede rin nabagabag.
Hindi,
Dapat.
nabagbag na nakalagay eh. Tama ba yun?
Medyo mali.
Nabagbag.
Mali
Gano'n.
yun.
Nabagabag yun dapat.
Wala ko
Ang
alam
kanyang damdamin
wala ko
sa
alam words
kanyang
na nabagbag.
Nabagbag.
Nabagabag
Hindi, kasi
yun.
kasama nga ng distribution ng mga bag. Katalaga.
Unless may ibang dialect na nabagbag ha, hindi ko kabisado eh. Pero sa Tagalog,
Hindi.
nabagabag yun.
Ami, kasama nga sa distribution ng libro, mga bag.
For me.
Isang araw habang
Lalong
siya'y
gumugulo itong usapan natin.
Medyo pasayad na ng pasayad.
Isang araw habang siya'y nagmumukmok sa ilalim ng kalbong puno, isang pamilyar na anino ang lumapit. Si Loro na may mga pakpak na kumikinang sa patak ng ulan ay dumapo sa tabi ni Quago. Wago kaibigan, malumanay na sabi ni Loro, ang bagyo ay panandalian lamang. Nandito ako upang tumulong sa muling itayo ang iyong pugad. Habang inaayos natin ang iyong tahanan, bakit hindi ka muna sa akin tumuloy? Magkasama nating hihintayin ng muling... Parang unity ito.
Ano?
Parang unity. Magkasama nating iintayin ang muling pagyabong ng iyong mahal na puno ng mangga.
Ano yung pinakahuli? Yung kinikilala yung si Vice President?
Ito, parang 2 pages lang. Napaluha si Quago, hindi dahil sa kalungkutan, kundi dahil sa pasasalamat. Lord, anya, ikaw ay tunay na kaibigan. Ang pagkakaroon ng isang kaibigan sa panahon ng unos ay higit na mahalaga kaysa sa 1,000 kaibigan sa panahon ng kasiyahan. So si Lord ay isang tunay na kaibigan. One more page and then dito tayo sa kilalanin si Inday Sara Duterte, siya ay isang tunay na kaibigan.
Nakalagay talaga yun. Siya isang tunay na kaibigan.
Ayun, last time. Kilalanin si Inday Sara Duterte, ika-15 pangalawang Pangulong Pilipinas, alkalde ng lungsod ng Davao, kalib na kagawa ng edukasyon, siya ay isang tunay na kaibigan.
Hindi siya politicized.
Nakalagay nga yun.
Hindi siya politicized.
Know the author. Kayo naman yan yung dulo, know the author.
Hindi ko inimbento.
Siya isang tunay na kaibigan. In contrast to, kaya kailangan, siguro sa House medyo malilinawan natin yung ibang mga tanong natin. Baka naman maituloy sa House.
Pero kita mo dito ang
Mukhang-
reference
mukhang
Lord, ikaw ay tunay na kaibigan. Ang pagkakaroon ng isang kaibigan sa panahon ng unos ay higit na mahalaga kaysa sa 1,000 kaibigan sa panahon ng kasiyahan.
Wala yung kinalaman sa tunay na buhay. Wala.
Sabi ko nga, magigets ba yan ng anong age group ba yung target niya?
doesn't say.
Kasi nung kindergarten ako, kami nun yung mga namin, see and go and go. Ganyan lang yung mga namin nun
Ba, English yung kindergarten niya.
Macmillan yun Macmillan book pa nun nung panahon na yun Yan yung mga namin kasi basic grammar yan, di ba? Medyo
Kaya
mahirap-hirap na yan pang comics na yung salita dyan
Kaya ngayon isang tanong ko, Ami, yung mga ganitong bang mga libro based on public funds, taxpayers' money, ay pwede mong gawing semi-campaign na hindi ko sinasabing full-blown campaign, pero parang semi-campaign project. No?
Kaya nga sabi nga niya, magbabasa niyan yung magulang Hindi kaya yan ng bata.
Ikaw kasi ang tunay na kaibigan
Or at the very least, book, even if you don't say it's politicized, a vanity project. No, at the very least, even if you say...
Taxpayers expense,
Even if you say it's not politicized, is it a vanity project? In your face and all that.
Politicized nga.
Ikaw talaga. Okay, pag-thank you naman tayo sa ating mga tunay na kaibigan. Si Ami Pamintuan ng Philippine Star at si Tito Ronald Llamas, isang tunay na kaibigan.
I just call a spade a spade.
Okay, sara na tayo. John Skin More, 4 p.m. for the Storycon. I'm Ed Lingao. We are one news, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.